Okay, everybody, we're going to go over this video that I did with Annie to be able to get on her back a little bit without any coercion, I guess we could call it. So I really enjoy working with my horses at liberty, meaning that I don't have a halter or rope on them. And I did a long video where I had Annie just hanging around and see if she would come and stay close. Now, in the beginning, I decided I would see what the effect was of using a carrot or having carrots on me. Now, generally, whenever I do this, I always regret it. I don't think I've come across a single scenario where I've thought, yep, treats are a good idea. And this one was the same. I don't even know why I tried it again. I think the last time I had tried treats was probably 6 months ago. With training, I never use treats. I know some people do, so I'm not telling people not to, but I will talk about why I find it not a good idea for what I want to do. So here I'm using it to have her look to her left. Now, when we're working with horses, they tend to get pretty worried if they can't see both sides of themselves. But if you're on one side and you're doing something, they'll tend to want to look at that side, but then you'll go touch the other side and they'll get all freaked out. And a lot of times horses will end up one-sided. So my goal is always to make a two-sided horse. So you can see that I've got the carrot in my hand, but it's not really effective. It's not a thing that is having much of an impression on her. Now I'm hanging off of her here because it's a good idea to constantly acclimate your horse, young horse. Annie's only 2, right? So it's a very, very good idea to acclimate her as best as I can to just being sort of touched on both sides, laid on, put some weight on her, have her sort of manage a little bit of my weight, sometimes moving around, sometimes coming back and forth or side to side. I'm using a stool because it's just easier, and it also acclimates her to being up a little bit, for me to be up a little bit higher than her. Now she has every opportunity to leave. She does not have to stick around and put up with this. You can see she hasn't even eaten carrot. She's thinking about it as I have it in my hand, for sure, but it is not a major driver. Or drawer, actually, for that matter. It's not a major draw for her. It's not that it isn't there, but I don't think that I would bother with this again. I think I'm finally done with this idea. In the past, I'd used it when I was going to ride to try to get a horse to go to a certain section of the arena or something like that. But then I found when I wanted to get them away from that section, I just had nothing. So essentially, it's just a massive cheat. You're just using it. I think it's just to be used. Not that it can't be used with some kind of benefit, but I think no matter what, you're still going to have to overcome whatever it was that you didn't have, and you decide to use treats, and now you have to overcome the treat or the food problem as well. And just in the background, Mocha's running around. I wanted her to be able to see what's going on as well. I think Annie's a good teacher for her. So I do try to train my horses 2 at a time or 3 at a time. Tend not to just have one in at a time. And that helps them kind of learn by osmosis or by observation. And in this case right here, I'm trying to just have Annie come forward or see if she'll come forward with this carrot. But it really isn't that long before I just give up on it. This carrot idea. This is ineffective. Plus, I'm also kind of giving her a bit of a hard time by laying across her and playing with her. And again, I'm up on the stool because I want her to continue to recognize me as who I am, even though I'm much higher than her compared to what I am usually. A change of sort of environment or a change of practice or technique or something sometimes throw horses off, and they'll get a little bit concerned. So I'm now moving forward to the idea that I want to create draw through what I would usually do, which is a lot of scratching or touching or rubbing or massaging or something like that, that has horses thinking that I'm their best friend. Food doesn't make a friend. Actually, I've never seen a case where food made a friend. food can create a bit of draw, but it's for the food, not necessarily for the person. So the major draw that we do create is from touch, from sensitivity, from listening, from talking, and a lot of it is scratching. I finally just give her the carrot because I just can't handle holding on to it anymore. I'm all done with carrots. No more treats. I think that my further training, and I look forward to what I think about myself in a year from now. As every year I kind of look back on my own ideas and thoughts and things that I've done, and they just evolve and change. But I'm really, really leaning towards the idea that the best way, and probably almost the only way to make a friend of a horse and create that draw where you can get things done that are not going to leave you, is through listening to them. Not always. I mean, sometimes you are telling, but you're still kind of listening at the same time. It's a communication that goes back and forth. And that communication is absolutely vital to be able to create a safer relationship. You see, now Annie left, but she didn't leave kicking or anything like that. Now I'm sort of just drawing her neck around. I'm going to push her body with my body a little bit. She sort of listens to that. It's a bit of a weird effect. I think it's quite useful that we're not wrestling with our horses. It's not a mosh pit. We're not trying to manhandle them around or in that regard. But horses do bump against each other a lot. They have a lot of touch. A lot of times, the best friends for horses, I find, are ones that are rubbing around a lot, shoulder to shoulder a little bit, or their chin on their back or stuff like that. So this draw right now isn't from food. We're not creating this draw anymore from food. She might have a random thought about it. Maybe she thinks maybe, but after that carrot, we're all done. So one of the things that I think about a lot, actually, when I am training or I'm working with horses, is patterns. Now, there's a benefit to having a pattern, and there's a benefit or there's a bit of a detrimental effect to having a strict pattern. The patterns that we can establish that are going to be healthy are ones that have some variance to them. So it's a pattern, but it's a bit of a variable pattern. Strict patterns, I think, can lock both human and horse into a routine that, when broken, causes trouble for both, or just one even. Could be the human, could be the horse. And so here, instead of asking for all of her attention, I just said, okay, I'm just going to not pay attention to you a little bit. When you do approach me, I'm definitely going to want to pay attention to you. I'm going to give you my attention. Hopefully it's good attention. And she's going to be kind of interested in wanting to hang around a little bit, because some of the things that I've done, she likes. Yeah. I make a good point to be able to touch my horse's faces. I'll never forget this one comment that came in quite a while ago, years ago probably. I'll never forget it. And somebody was just yelling at me, stop touching your horse's faces, they hate it. And I've never experienced that. Once you kind of get past the fear of their face being touched. Horses love it when you rub their eyes and you kind of scratch their ears, or you just sort out a bit of an itch on their forehead or something like that. They can't really do it themselves, so for us to do it for them can be very, very good. You see now Annie's looking to her right while most of my body is on her left. And I'm kind of doing this on purpose. There's a lot of contact points here. Go into the science of it a little bit. Something that's really easy to understand for us as humans is a topic of contact points. So my stomach or hips are kind of a big contact point. I've got my right hand on her butt. That's another contact point. My left hand was busy scratching. Another contact point. There was one time I went to a barn and a lady had asked me, she says, well, can you tell me what's wrong with this horse? We put a saddle on her and she freaks out. It's a bit of a rescue. We're not sure what to do. Can you come check her? I said, okay. So I show up, and the first thought that goes through my mind is, well, how many points of contact can this horse handle? And I walked up next to the horse, and I'm on the ground, and we're all on the ground, and nobody's on any high spot. And I touch with one hand, and she's kind of, you can tell there's something sort of in there, some kind of worry. So I try to scratch a little bit, and she's sort of, okay. And I go to put a second hand on, and her head comes up. When a horse's head comes up really high, it usually means they're very worried. So it's very normal for horses to do that because their eyes are, I mean, it readies them to be able to go as well, but their eyes are more inclined to be able to see in detail based on the way that they're built if their head is up rather than down. They don't look over the tops of their eyes very well. They look more at the bottoms of their, middle to bottoms of their eyes quite well. So they'll put their head up and they'll be alert, high alert. And I said, I think I know what's going on here. I said, when you put a saddle on, you have to consider that we're touching on one side and the other side, and we're probably doing another thing, and we put a cinch on, and so on and so forth. So saddles can be a lot of contact points, and a lot of times these will be completely ignored because the horse will be cross-tied. Hence why I never tie, I never cross-tie. In fact, sometimes I just work like this, straight liberty. And if a horse wants to leave, then I know that I've gone to a place that they're uncomfortable with, and I can address that. But if they're tied up, you can't really get that communication. I mean, you can get it, you can see it. If you're looking for it, it is really obvious. But a lot of people will just tell a horse to be quiet while they're tied up. So you see Annie went a little bit far. She really wants to get her butt scratched. So I just stop. And that draws her back. And I touch her ears. And you see the pattern is just, the same thing over and over again. And Moko's paying no attention to us. That doesn't help me at all. Until later. Anyhow, so I end up telling them, I said, okay, I think this is what's called a contact point problem. And Annie's doing really well. For a horse, I mean, she's had some good saddle work done. I've not ridden her, I've not sat on her. But she does handle both sides of her body really well. So I didn't expect this to really go too badly. I was a little worried once. I was worried about if I did try to sort of lay on her what she would do, which we do get to. So I say to the ladies, I say, I think we're going to discover a real problem here. I'm going to put one hand on, and the horse was kind of, a little engaged there. Two hands on, high alert. I said, I'm just going to put my leg up. I'm going to put a leg up and beside the horse to give a third contact point. And when I did that, the horse jumped away from me, which is scary. Horses are very fast. It's always a big concern when a horse jumps away from you. And I said, what we're really seeing here is a horse that hasn't been acclimated to the idea that they can be touched all over at the same time. So another way that you can discover this kind of thing is by having more than one person groom a horse at the same time. All the wildies here have the issue of having people on either side of them. So a lot of the training in the very beginning is like, okay, well, we'll just stay on one side for now. But it's not long before I have others around and I say, I need you to go to the other side. I want the horse to be thinking about the other side of the body while they're thinking about the side of the body. And of course, a lot of the stuff that I do is exactly as you're kind of seeing, where I'm leaning over top or I'm scratching the other side. But you do have to be cautious when you're doing that, because when you reach around to the other side, you put a rope around the other side, they might get really scared of that and then they'll jump towards you. And that's not good at all. You don't want that. So a lot of acclimation for the horses, for me, for my training with them, is to make them double-sided, to make it so that they can handle things on both sides and both sides. And at the same time, both sides, sort of thing. So we work a lot on that. It's actually quite amazing how long Annie has really stuck with me here. We've been almost 15 minutes into this video. There's no cuts. You're not seeing any breaks. I'm not chasing her around. I'm not doing anything. She's just sticking with me, which is quite nice. She hasn't got sick of me yet. So in the end, those ladies said, okay, well, that's the problem. How do we solve it? And I said, it's just a lot of acclimation. It's a lot of time spent touching. It's a lot of time spent reassuring. That's why we want to be able to touch places that are very sensitive: their eyes, their ears, their mouth, their nose, under their belly and their stifle. Pick up their feet. Picking up feet is a very, very vital skill for a horse to have. So you can see Annie leaning way away from me. I don't know, but she sticks with it. It's one of the ways we can not trick a horse, but sort of have them change their stance a little bit, is by having our hand on that other side of the horse. So she leans away, and I might hold there. You see how I sort of held her shoulder. And hopefully she wouldn't lean away as much, because that hand pressure would have her thinking to come back. But my body is on the other side. So now, an interesting probably question that might come in is, well, why don't you just stick it out? Why don't you just hang on and keep going? And I'm not of the mindset that I should ride out a problem, or I should hang on as hard as I can for a problem, especially in these beginning stages. Actually, probably in any stage. But in these beginning stages, I want to let her know, if she's feeling pretty uncomfortable, let's do a reset. We can do a reset together. We can stop. We can reevaluate each other. We can take the worry out of each other. And that works for everybody, because I see so many training videos out there where people just look unbearably unhappy, almost, angry even. You watch a trainer that just doesn't look happy, is looking angry and frustrated. And generally, they're just, because they're scared. It's an uncomfortable situation. And it doesn't look pleasant. It doesn't look pleasant for anybody. So if Annie indicates to me, I'm really leaning on her sideways here, so I don't do that for too long either. She's only 2. We don't want to stress her too much. And she moves away from the stool. It's another thing to practice a lot. Just keep on moving things close to them. I stand up, she sort of evades a little. So we're starting to see an Annie that just says, I think you're going to climb on me. And we're starting to look at that pattern that I talked about earlier, about establishing too much of a pattern. This is a very vulnerable position for a horse to be in, where you kind of have their head like that, and you're covering their eyes, and you're really in their ears and stuff. A horse should be quite worried, but we want to take that out. So a lot of the time, the work is to take out the worry. We see groundwork, we see riding, training videos all the time, and a horse will jolt forward, or they'll leap forward, or they'll be fidgeting, or they'll be, any of these reactions that are too quick for what they should be. We want nice, slow. You see, I'm just kind of cruising around, and I'm not really doing anything really quick. I'm not jittering my way through this. And so a horse shouldn't be jittering their way through the training either. If you ask them to go, it should be a nice, soft go. If you ask them to stop, it should be a nice, soft stop. I mean, until you need more precision through some kind of work. But in the beginning, we really do want to just be as quiet and as peaceful as we can with them. And now I finally put my weight on top of her. And you see the concern that kind of gets put into her. She's kind of worried. So I don't stick it out. I don't just hope for the best and throw a leg over and ride it out. I just have no interest in that. And now she's left. She said, okay, that was weird. I'm out. And that's fine. That's totally fine. In fact, it allows her to sort of decompress. I don't know if horses go off thinking about things. I think that they think in the moment. She's now thinking about, where's Mocha? I'm going to go hang out with her. Because that guy's kind of weird. And he's not scratching as much, or no carrots, or whatever. He just keeps sort of laying on top of me. And it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for horses. I mean, I'm close to, I think, 190 pounds. So it's a bit of weight on top of there, even though I try to stay as balanced as I can, which is a very important skill to have when riding. And making sure that we don't throw the horse off balance. Throwing a horse off balance, it's no different than if you were giving somebody a piggyback, or even worse, if you were giving them a child, usually, a ride on your shoulders, and they start sort of swinging their arms around, or they start, moving their head or their body around, it sends us sideways. So, okay, so here I do a quick cut. And in between this next training session, I brought Lena in and rode her around a little bit with the babies. So nothing too exciting. We just did a little ride. In fact, I did a whole video about it. I think I pushed the babies around a little bit. And so now my next step is to introduce that same concept more to Annie. So Lena's butt is in the way here, but I think it worked out. To be able to see.
Hello, Lena.
Another thing about having a very calm horse hanging around is that you can talk to them, because if they do choose to stay around, which Lena did, which was a big help, I'm able to touch her and calm her, and she also won't hassle Annie, which will give Annie a little bit of confidence. If you do have a horse that wants to give the other horse a hard time, then you're probably going to want to solve that, probably by sending them. So there, I'll ask them not to talk so much, because sometimes when they talk a little bit, it's hard to catch, but there'll be something in there where it's like, no, don't do that, because you guys are going to freak out. So there's another short little ride. It's essentially Annie's first rides. These are Annie's very, very first 5-second rides. And I think that this is important to tackle and not do in constraints. So no lead, no halter. She doesn't have to stay. I'm just going to continue. So this is where we establish a very understandable pattern. I'm going to hop on you. This is what it looks like. But at the same time, we can vary that as well. So I'm trying to just balance myself a little bit. I'm off the stool. She's looking the other side of her, which is really good. And she's just standing there supporting my weight across her back. And I'm using my stomach. I'm not sitting on my ribs. I'm using my stomach area to lay across her spine. Not on her spine as much as I can help it, but across her spine to both sides of her spine where her muscles are. So here I decide, okay, well, maybe it'll mean something to Annie if I do the same thing to Lena, and she's sticking around and watching. So this is where we do this teaching by osmosis. Lena's not tied either. They can have a quick chat because I'm on the higher horse. So if you're working with the lower horse, you want to tell the higher horse to be quiet. And so Annie's really paying attention. This is very, very good. So I'll pet her as well. And we're just a big happy family here. We're just a good team. And then I'll hop up and over and I lay. And Lena can move or not move. She can walk around a little bit or not. And Annie's looking at this going, cool. And I get the opportunity to pet Annie at the same time. This is what I would call the ideal horse training situation, where I can teach one horse with another horse, all through reassurance, all through quiet and softness, all through a lack of drama, a lack of fear, a lack of worry. None of these things, here comes Mocha, it's even better. None of these things, so I'm with the higher horse. Mocha is not going to, she's not going to come and hassle Annie, but Annie will feel like she wants to tell her something. So if it becomes too much of a distraction, then I deal with that as well. I might send the little one out kind of idea. Or I'll ask for more of Annie's attention to come and hang out with me, which she kind of does naturally. I've got good draw. And you'll notice when you watch videos out there of when a trainer does not have good draw, they have good drive, which is really, really easy to do. So you can see here how I place my stomach over top of her spine. My ribs are over on the other side and my hips are on the other side. And now I'm off the stool again. And a lot of rubbing. Definitely rub all over. Definitely keep teaching that it's okay. And there she is. And talking is a really good thing. A lot of trainers go really silent, or a lot of people who work with horses go really quiet. And there's a time and a place for quiet for sure. But when you kind of got these concerns and you see her head kind of come up and she's worried and stuff, then I think that it's really beneficial to talk. And there we go. And that's sort of my training with Annie there. A really good session. She's stuck around. She hasn't left. She's not afraid. She's not trapped. None of these things. So hopefully that's been a little bit interesting for you guys. And we're going to end this here. If you have any questions or thoughts, let me know anytime. And I will see you guys in the next one.